like to present our project RaceHub, and this project was made in CS467 fall of 2025, and we had Takafumi, Matthew, and Mai working on this project. And so a bit of an introduction to RaceHub. So the problem that we're trying to address is that there's no central platform in which people can create and find local races. And right now, runners rely on a host of websites and social media in order to find and register, and we would like it to be a more centralized website. And so the solution, like I said, it would be a free crowdsourced racing platform that allows the creation of races, the registering of races, as well as the management by things such as QR code, etc. So why this matters? This matters because racing is pretty popular in it, or running in general, and this would make it racing easier to access for all levels of runners. And this would also help strengthen local communities and drive participation into the sport.
A quick walkthrough of the project right now. So this is the homepage right here. It shows the popular upcoming races. These are just the top six races by participants registered for the race. So if you click, let's just do view race details, you could see that Google Maps API is integrated. So you could see the map view and then the street view as well for the race start location. And then if you want to view the full race details, you can. You can register as a participant or as a volunteer if you're logged in. Yeah, so that's that. I'll show you the browse races. You can browse by name, difficulty, and distance. So yeah. I'll just go ahead and show you create race, which you have to be logged in to do. So we'll just do test 2, day 12. Okay, and then this uses autocomplete and it's geocoding, so we get the longitude and the latitude from this. So just okay, save. Okay, then we go to browse races. Here's the race we just created. So you can see, and go to view details. So yeah, this is basically like race official tools. So you could, I'll go ahead and register for this race to show you a better example. Once you register for the race, you get a QR code here. So this is your bib number. And then if you are a volunteer at the race, you would open the scanner and scan the QR codes, and that would basically generate a list of finishers. You can also delete volunteers and delete participants. And yeah, here's the profile. It shows your registered races, and then it shows the created races as well. Thanks.
Hello, I'm Takafumi. First, I would like to briefly introduce each member's role and the technologies we used. Matthew and Mai handled the UI implementation, while I was responsible for all API development as well as setting up the AWS environment and the CI/CD pipeline using GitHub and cron jobs. We chose Amazon Lightsail because it provides various managed services such as virtual machines and BioScale, which allows us to quickly build a small-scale web application. Our development process began with setting up AWS Lightsail and the CI/CD pipeline to establish the development environment. After that, we proceeded to implement the front and back-end components in a step-by-step approach. We initially planned to complete the implementation by the submission of repository. However, setting up the development environment took a considerable amount of time, which delayed the schedule, and we continued implementation until the end of week 9. The biggest challenge I faced was implementing a large number of APIs on my own. To address this, I adopted the clean architecture, a widely used backend design pattern. This approach allows me to reuse methods efficiently, significantly improving productivity. Finally, what I learned through this project is clearly defining use cases is essential for delivering high-quality service on schedule. And there were instances where I have to revise the API design due to insufficiently defined use cases, and I intend to apply this lesson in the future development projects. Okay, I would like to demonstrate a little bit about the backend of our service. And this is the Amazon Lightsail instance where our service is running. And this is also the database instance and the network setting instance. And all these instances are located in Oregon's availability zone.
Discuss the development portion for which is me. And so my contributions to the project was setting up Firebase authentication for the project, as well as creating a bunch of the UI for the front end and then integrating those with the back end as endpoints became available. Some of the front end work I did was for the login and sign up page, the profile page, and then anything regarding race management, such as QR code generation, scanning, and the race results. And then the technologies that I used were for libraries, we used React, router, icons, QR code, and then HTML5 QR code. And then in terms of frameworks, we used Tailwind CSS, Firebase, as well as Vite that you can see here. Okay, so for development, my development steps were as follows. So at first I set up Firebase, and then I made the front-end UI portion without integrating to the backend yet. And then I created authentication context for the front end, and that hooked it up with Firebase. And then I integrated with the backend as the endpoints became available. And then as things progressed, I began refactoring some code to make it more reusable within React. And then finally, I made sure things were consistent throughout the whole application in the front end. Okay, so deviations for the original plan, there were two. So we wanted to include more testing in the front end, but due to time constraints, we couldn't implement as much testing as we wanted. Secondly was race notifications in chat, which were optional, weren't implemented due to the same time constraints. And then takeaways was just learning how to pool existing resources and knowledge in order to create one cohesive single project. And then finally, challenges I faced were just using new technologies that I hadn't used before, like Firebase, and also the QR code implementation. And then the other thing was just aligning the creation of the front end and the back end endpoints in order to get those integrated in a timely manner.
Hi, I'm Matthew, and I'm going to walk through my part of the development for this project. So what parts was I responsible for? I built the front end for the homepage, the browse races, the race preview. Only part of the race page. May did a lot of that as well. And then the create race page. For technologies, I started with Figma, basically using their relatively new AI feature to generate user interface mockups and kind of get the look and the feel right. On the implementation side, I use React with Vite for a fast and modern front-end setup, as well as JavaScript for the application logic and Tailwind CSS to style pages quickly. In terms of development steps, so I basically began with Figma mockups to nail down the layout and key components. From there, I created skeleton React components that matched the designs, the mockup designs, and then I first filled them in with hard-coded sample data, and then once the backend was ready, I wired the components up to the actual endpoints, and then finished with testing. What was the original plan and what were the deviations? So the original plan was to go further and use the Google Maps 3D flyover API to create basically cinematic race previews, but we ended up dropping that idea because it was expensive and slow to generate, and would have taken way too much time for our scope. What were some challenges you faced and how did you overcome them? I guess dealing with changing APIs and the constraints around mapping, and I dealt with this by prioritizing essential features, making sure users could reliably browse and view and create races. And what did I learn? Well, overall, this taught me to adapt my designs to the most critical features rather than chasing like the flashiest idea, and keeping the front end flexible as the back end and requirements evolve over time. Thanks.
I would like to share the conclusion of our project. First, the service will be discontinued at the end of this term because the Amazon Lightsail instance was provisioned for use during this course. Additionally, we don't plan to commercialize the service at this stage because doing so will require more extensive market research on marathon events and a further enhancement of the system's features before it could be released. Nevertheless, we will retain the source code and manage it as part of our professional portfolios. Lastly, I would like to express my sincere appreciation to the instructors and TAs for their continuous guidance and support throughout this term. Thank you so much for your invaluable assistance.